So welcome back to another trigonometry video. In this video, we're going to look at the law of sines. The law of sines is a way to help us solve a triangle that's not a right triangle. So what does it mean to solve a triangle? To solve a triangle, that means we know the length of all three sides and we know the angles of all three sides. With a right triangle, it's easy. We can use right triangle trig to figure everything out, like we saw in the last section. But what if it's not a right triangle? Well, that's where the law of sines and another one called the law of cosines will come in handy. So when can you use the law of sines? The law of sines can be used if you have an angle side angle triangle. So what that means is you know this angle and you know the side length between those two angles. Or if you have a side angle angle triangle, so we know this side, we know the angle connected to that side, and then we know this angle over here. Or if you have a side-side angle triangle. So side, we know this side, and then we know this angle connected to this one. Okay, with the first two, it's pretty easy to do, but with that last one, we have to be careful. So I'm going to put a star beside this one because this guy can actually result in one triangle, two triangles, or zero triangles. So in that case, we have to be careful about, and we'll see an example of that in a little bit. So let's look at an example. So if we look at number 12, let's figure out what case it is. So we have a side here. We know the angle that's connected to that, and then we know another angle. So number 12 is a side angle triangle. So we can use the law of sines to help us figure it out. And the law of sines simply says sine A over A is equal to sine B over B equals sine C over C. So I can use any of these together. So I could put these together if I know that information. I could put these together if I know that information. Or I could put these together if I know that information. So you got to know three pieces to be able to solve for the fourth. So let's look at number 12. Now, we already know what angle A is going to be. We know that all of the angles has to add up to 180 degrees. So if we take 180 and I subtract 125 and I subtract 30, that would tell me what angle A is. So 180 minus 125 minus 30 is 25 degrees. So we know this is going to be 25 degrees. So now let's figure out the sides. So I'm going to use sine of A over A is equal to something. Let's see what we have. So if this is angle A, this is A. If this is side C, this would be angle C. So that means this guy has to be angle B and side B. Now I know angle B and side B, so that's what I'm going to use. So sine of 30 over 10. And we know what A is. A is 25 degrees. So we're going to cross multiply. So we're going to have 10 sine of 25 is equal to A sine of 30. Now remember, sine of 30 is just the number. So we're going to divide by that. 10 sine of 25 divided by sine of 30. And that's going to be our A. Now sine of 25 is not a nice number. So I'm just going to do this off to the side on my calculator. So 10 sine of 25 divided by sine of 30. Make sure you're in degree mode. And I got A to be about 8.45. So now we got to figure out C. So we're going to use sine of 125 over side C. And I'm still going to use that B information. Sine of 30 degrees over side B, which is 10. So once again, we're going to cross multiply. So 10 sine of 125 equals C sine of 30. Divide both sides by 30. Or sine of 30. Now I got 16.38. So C is 16.38. So we have solved this triangle by finding the lengths of the rest of the sides and the missing angle. So let's do another one. Let's look at 23. And it's going to help if we draw a picture of what's going on. So I'm going to draw a triangle. I'm going to call it A, B, and C. So A has an angle of 40 degrees, B has an angle of 40 degrees, and side C, which is this one, is equal to 2. So this is side A and this is side B. It helps to figure out what kind we have. So we have an angle, we have the side in between, and we have another angle. So this is an angle side angle. And then we know that angle side angle is one of the cases we can use law of sines. So let's set it up. Our first step is to figure out what C is. Well, we know what angle C is going to be, right? Because we know that 180 is the length for all of the angles. And we're going to subtract 40 degrees for angle A and 40 degrees for angle B. So that's going to leave us with 100 degrees here. So there's C. Now we just got to figure out the lengths for A and B. So we can set this up in a lot of different ways. Here's the way I'm going to set this up. So I'm going to look at sine of B over B equals sine of C over C. So for us, it's going to be sine of 40 over side B, which we're looking for, equals sine of 100 over 2. Cross multiply. 2 sine of 40 is equal to B sine of 100. And then B is going to be equal to 2 sine of 40 divided by sine of 100. Type this in your calculator. 2 sine of 40 divided by sine of 100. I got B to be about 1.31. So this side is about 1.31. So now let's find side A. Sine A is going to be set up pretty much the same way. So we're looking at sine of A over A equals sine of C over C. So we have sine of 40 over A equals sine of 100 over 2. It's the exact same setup that we had over here. So we're going to get the exact same value. Multiply both sides, well, cross multiply. And divide. So A is also 1.31. So let's look at a word problem. So we've got this figure that's going along with this problem. To find the length of the span of a proposed ski lift from P to Q, so P to Q, so we're looking for this side here. I don't know what it is, I'm calling it R. A surveyor measures DPQ, so DPQ would be 25 degrees, so that's why they have a 25 here, and then walks off a distance of 1,000 feet, so there's 1,000 feet from here to here, and measures PRQ. PRQ is this angle to be 15 degrees. We want to know the distance from P to Q. So we've got this picture. We can figure out everything we need. So we need to know some angles. Actually, we really need to know what this angle is up here, and we have enough information to figure that out. So we know this is 25 degrees, and we got to figure out what this is. That way we can figure out what this guy is. So to figure this out, these are supplementary angles. Supplementary means they add up to 180 degrees. And we know they add up to 180 degrees because they're forming this line here. Think about this line as the ground. So if I take 180 and I subtract 25, 180 minus 25 is going to give me 155 here. So the distance, the angle from here to here is 155. So now I've got this not a right triangle. I have a triangle here, and I know two of the angles. I know this one's 155 and this one's 15. So this one is going to be 180 minus 155 minus 15, which is 10 degrees. So let's figure out how can we set this up. We could say sine of 10 over 1,000 is equal to sine of 15 over r. This is an angle side angle problem. So let's multiply, cross multiply. So r is going to be equal to 1,000 sine of 15 divided by sine of 10. And I got the length to be 1490.48. So that's how long that ski lift would need to be to go from P to Q.